Lesson.2. The living cell. Life is the expression of a series of chemical changes. Osler in Modern Medicine, page 39. Modern science has spent years trying to define life, and some of the many definitions advanced appear under life in our work titled Scientific Living. In the Book of Popular Science, it is said, "What is life?" That is another question, and the answer is one of the profound mysteries. Science has explored life down to a single cell of living matter, but exactly what makes that cell alive is not known. One of the main concepts of science, the living protoplasm, which has been regarded by science for a century as the source of life, was exploded in 1937 by a group of America's foremost scientists, who showed that protoplasm is composed of numerous ordinary particles, visible by modern methods, and not one of these particles is alive. Protoplasm is the sticky, whitish substance of which living tissues seem to be made. It was so named in 1840 from the Greek protos and plasm, a thing formed and means the first creation. Dr. Ian Harvey of Princeton University related how, under the microscope, protoplasm has literally fallen apart in a whirling centrifuge and fine testing methods. It appeared to be composed of cells, bits of fat, granules of colored matter, proteins, threads, hollow bubbles, nuclei, minerals, and a complex of other substances, not one of which, he said, can be considered as living except insofar as it is indispensable for the continuance of life. Thus, the mystery of life remains unsolved so far as modern science is concerned. Osler declared that life is not an entity nor a principle, but only the expression of a series of chemical changes. Then came the famous Carroll, whose experiments showed that Osler is wrong. Carroll said the childish physiochemical conceptions of the human being, in which so many physiologists and physicians believe, have to be definitively abandoned. Man the Unknown, page 108. This leaves medical art with no law of physiology, and it cannot have one until it knows what makes the body function. Chiropractic Law of Physiology. The science of chiropractic discovered the law of physiology, and the law was formulated by the great Wheeler Carver, who died in 1943 at the age of 80. He founded the Carver Chiropractic College at Oklahoma City in 1905. Carver wrote, "Organisms that move in the conduct we term animation are not alive. Life is immanent in such structures, but not inherent in them. We speak of a wire as being alive whilst a current of electricity is flowing through it. If we cut off the current, the wire becomes dead, yet the wire itself has assumed no visible change. Life as it is observed in this material existence is the action of matter under the operation of force. The body of man is alive in the sense that it is animated by the life principle flowing through it. According to Carver, the living organism is an instrument, and its animating power is the life principle. But this old doctrine of the ancient masters, who held that the cosmic spirit animates the body of man, is a mere superstition, according to modern science, and accepted now only by the layman and the chiropractors. No satisfactory theory of the evolution of man as advanced by the evolutionists can be sustained so long as the genesis of life upon this planet is shrouded in darkness. The basic factors and causes of evolution are bound up in the question of life itself. The evolutionist begins with the living cell, once given a primordial life cell capable of reproduction, and modern science constructs men physically, vitally, intellectually, and morally. According to modern science, all these properties appear in matter as a result of the expression of a series of chemical changes. Preposterous, that exceeds the work of the magician in pulling white habits out of a hat. Where did the living cell come from? The evolutionist makes no attempt to explain the original appearance of the living cell itself, nor does he explain the nature or cause that originated it. He does not explain the original division of living organisms into male and female. He does not explain the phenomenon of intelligence displayed in the conduct of all living things. Modern science explains none of these things. On the other hand, it most unscientifically relegates them to the realm of the unknowable. Modern science confesses itself baffled at every point when it would explain how life evolves from non-life, how sensation evolves from non-sensation, how intelligence appears in living creatures. It fails to explain this phenomena just as it fails to explain how intuitive intelligence rises into rational intelligence, or how immoral perceptions rise into moral conceptions. The vigilant biologist traces life to the nucleated cell. Here, in the department of protozoa, he becomes bewildered. He misses the connecting link. He fails to discover that subtle principle which enters into and converts inanimate substance into living organisms. This lack of basic knowledge caused Carroll to state that our ignorance of the body and its functions is profound. The mechanistic physiologists of the 19th century have committed an error in endeavoring to reduce man entirely to physical chemistry. In more definite terms, modern physiologists of the orthodox school are still in darkness as to the body's requirements and functions, what the body needs to sustain it, and why its functions are things unknown to them. The field is wide open for the consideration of man, with almost nothing definitely known by physical science, and any reasonable theory advanced may be as correct as any other. Is eating necessary? Appetite comes with eating. In our work titled The Nutritional Myth, we stated that it is more difficult to explain why man should eat than to show that he should never eat. It is said by some unorthodox physiologists that man should not eat, that what he does eat does not sustain his body, that the cells of which his body is composed are self-existent and self-sustaining, as are all other objects that are composed of atoms as the body cells are, and that man should have no more need for food than a stone or a star, since these also are constituted of atoms the same as are the body cells. Science knows that the parent cell begins the body and builds it by a process of cell division and subdivision. Food does not build the cell nor the body. Neither can food sustain the cell or the body. New cells are not produced by food, but by the division of pre-existent cells. The new cells replace the disintegrated cells. Modern science knows that. It knows that the new cells are not the product of food, Yet it insists that the body is nourished and sustained by what man eats. Consistency of thought demands that we proceed in our processes in a direct line through infinite time to infinite results. If food does not produce cells, if all cells of the body are produced by the process of division and subdivision of pre-existent cells, then food does not and cannot nourish and sustain the cells. In that case, the cells need no nourishment, cannot receive nor use it, and are self-existent and eternal. If food can produce and sustain living cells, if unintelligent matter can produce intelligence, there is no reason why man should not progress to infinite capacity by virtue of the power residing in the food he eats. Elimination. Experiments consistently show, without an exception, that elimination is much more important than feeding. Many refuse to recognize that fact. The maintenance of vital condition of the body is more intimately and immediately related to and dependent upon the excreting part of the physiological process than it is upon the supply of new elements. Many refuse to recognize the fact that feeding may be suspended for a considerable period without causing anything more serious than loss of weight and strength. The records show that people have gone without food all the way from 40 days to 40 years and still lived in good health. But the elimination of the effete substance produced by tissue disintegration cannot be checked for even a few minutes in warm-blooded animals without inducing fatal results. Every act of respiration is in effect the leading process of excretion and the only process of animation. For to stay the breathing is to stop the living. Longevity, Chapter 3. The products of cell disintegration are liquids and gases, of which the gases form the greater part. The major portion of the gases is eliminated via the lungs. The rest leaves the body through the kidneys and the skin. The liquids also leave the body via the kidneys, lungs, and skin. Cells are not produced by food. We reiterate that what man eats and drinks does not produce cells nor nourish them. The cells all come from the parent cell, the beginning point of the body. The body cells do not depend on what man eats and drinks. They are not nourished. That is another illusion. The cells are far above the nutritional level, are independent of nutrition, and are self-existent and eternal. A fact demonstrated by Carroll. Upon the demise of the body, the tissues, glands, and organs disintegrate, setting free the cells that constitute these structures, and the immortal cells return to the cosmic ether whence they came. The cells are perpetual and indestructible, as are all primal elements of the universe, to which order the body cells belong. Early men were breatharians. These facts have constrained unorthodox physiologists to advance the theory that the first men in the early days were breatharians, deriving from the divine breath of life all the substance the body required for its existence. And they lived from 80,000 to 100,000 years, or until they were ready to return to their spiritual home. As stated in our work on longevity, Chapter 12, the human body is now known to be a composition of trillions of cells. Each cell is a mass of millions of atoms, each of which is a globular system with planets whirling with tremendous speed. So what use, asks the unorthodox physiologist, has such a system for food and drink? What use has our solar system for food and drink? The miraculous cell. The body cells are endowed with unsuspected powers and astounding properties. Despite its smallness, the cell is an exceedingly complex organism that does not in the least resemble the favorite abstraction of the modern chemist, a drop of gelatin surrounded by a semi-permeable membrane. While the structural complexity of the living cell is disconcerting to the orthodox biologist, its chemical constitution is still more intricate. A droplet water forms a tiny microcosm containing, in a state of extreme dilution, a great variety of cosmic elements. A body cell is practically a duplicate thereof, but raised to the exalted plane of divine animation. Carroll says that the parent cell and the cells that come therefrom are not made of extraneous material like a house. He means that the cells are not composed of what man eats and drinks. He states that while the body is composed of cell as a house is of brick, the body is born of a cell that makes more cells, just as through a house originated from one brick, a magic brick that would set about manufacturing other bricks. Those bricks, without waiting for the architect's drawing or the coming of the bricklayers, says Carroll, would assemble themselves and form a house, and all parts thereof.